Hey guys, it's Boss here. If you're joining for the first time, this is a game dev channel where I talk about my games that I'm developing. In this video, I'll talk about the latest changes to my RTS Colony game Dominion Master, where you play as the villain Protagonist. I was working on making the game look more organic because I didn't have many textures, only 8, which I increased to 32, so I had room for stuff like lava and caves and jungles and so on, and making your orc camp covered in scattered bones. You know, goblins and orcs are not very tidy and hygienic. They would probably shit what they eat and not use rubbish bins. So in preparation for that, I was enabling a higher texture count. I tried to generate the bone texture with AI, but it looked kind of shitty, so instead I just cooked it in Photoshop myself, discovering the normal generation function within Photoshop during the process, and the end result that I got I think looks pretty good, but I'll let you be the judge of that, and you can let me know what you think in the comments. After adding the textures, I spent time on making sure they blended together well. There's a lot of settings to tune, and to help me do it, I did this kind of paint palette sort of approach and made sure that I tune each one until they look well blended with the other ones that I'm interested in. Once that was done, I loaded them into the game and started working on how and where to apply them. If you use the same texture for all your grassy areas, you'll get tiling and it won't look good. So you have to use a couple of different textures for the same kind of area, but then you have to blend them together and use some sort of noise pattern. Then you have to hide the noise with grass or some sort of vegetation, and then at the same time when you zoom out you want to hide the grass, but you still don't want to hide the noise. So it's quite complicated. I think there's probably some kind of industry solutions to it, but I'm not really sure what they are. I got what I have, and I think that I'm kind of satisfied with it, but it could be better. What I'd really like is for it to look like Manor Lords, which I think is a huge inspiration. I love the vibe of this game and its work on textures, and Lords is honestly it's the best I've seen. Particularly love that when you zoom in, it shows you the different ground texture, like the actual dirt, and when you zoom out, it uses a different texture, and you see it blend between one and the other. So when you're zoomed in, you see the dirt and 3D grass, and when you zoom way out, the grass starts to fade out, and instead of seeing the dirt, you just see this kind of smooth textured surface, and it just looks amazing. The next thing I work on was a bit of optimization. So you might recall in my previous video I had fired many rays from each creature like bicycle spokes, and these rays would hit stuff, and if there is an enemy that they hit, then the creature would detect it. Well, it's not really an efficient way to do things, and when I playtested it I saw that performance wasn't very good. And I'd like you to have lots of characters, so it gives you a greater feeling of a power fantasy that this game is supposed to do by having more minions. So the right approach is called a quad tree, and what you basically do is create segments of the map and divide them into quarters. Then once you have more than a certain threshold of units in that quarter, you divide it again. So the result is that given the same position, you can quickly identify which quadrant that position belongs to, and then you only have to check a small subset of guys within that quadrant to give you a logarithmic cost for finding nearby units instead of a linear cost. This means that FPS can stay low when you have a crowded area, and it means you have more minions and you kind of a better power fantasy from the game. The next thing I did was also performance related. One of the biggest bottlenecks I have at the moment is that the framework I use for behavior is driven by asset files, which I create templates with to configure minion behaviors. Whenever I load one of these assets in, it uses JSON serialize, which is notoriously slow because it uses reflection, which is kind of like code reading code as data. During this, I managed to find a few inefficiencies that I controlled and which I fixed, which let me speed things up by at least twofold. But the underlying issue remains unsolved at the moment because it's baked into Unity. So I'm still searching for how to solve it. In the meantime, to prevent FPS spikes, I put a little throttle into how many creatures can change their behavior in the same frame to 3, which is barely noticeable actually. It even looks more realistic because they don't all instantly react to something when it happens. But performance wise, there doesn't appear to be any more lag spikes, which is great. When one group fights another, there isn't a huge screen freeze. It's amazing. The next thing I worked on was having little indicators above your minions that show you what they're doing or thinking. This is very important, so at a glance you can see what's going on, and after a bit of time troubleshooting, I got it to work. But it still looks kind of ugly, and I think it needs more polish. Let me know what you think in the comments about it. After your minions are able to tell you what they think and that they don't have a bed, I went on to overcomplicate their sleeping behavior, spending much time getting on them to actually lie down, until I realized that they're lying down inside a tent, which you can't see inside of, so there's no point putting an animation on lying down into a bed. So when they sleep, they recover stamina, and stamina is something that will be consumed by your minions whenever they do fighting or spellcasting, but also more innocuous tasks like mining rocks and chopping trees. Then I started working on food necessities. I did a poll on my Discord server, which you can find a link to in the description, and picked up the most popular ideas for how this should be implemented. It took me way too long to do this, so I came in with a lot of questions I hadn't considered. For example, if a deer is realistic, you're never going to catch it with an axe. It will just outrun you every single time. So after spending a week on deer getaway AI, I decided that I'll make them a little bit dumber so your minions can still chase them, but they don't have to run for kilometers until they manage to run the deer into a procedurally generated corner in a cliff, because that just wouldn't be fun. And you're not going to feel like, Lisan Algai Sauron if your minions can't even solve basic problems like fixing their own hunger. Besides deer, I also added wild pigs and bears that are edible, but they fight back. Then I created animal spawners around the map and tweaked them to spawn animals in different ratios, but this needs a bit of tuning, so forests are not littered with hundreds of corpses of deer and swarms of bears that attack you in ravenous hordes. It's amusing, but not for long. That's all I have for now. Stay tuned for future videos, and if you like this project and video, then show me some love on the subscribe button and give me all that engagement stuff that YouTube wants to see. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.